Now have the pleasure of speaking to Omar Alshogre, who is a human rights activist who spent 3 years in prison in Syria, including in the notorious Senanda jail. He's now living in Stockholm and he joins us from there now. Omar, thanks so much for joining us on the program. Now, you spent time in that infamous prison in Damascus. Tell us what you were in there for and describe what you experienced.
In Syria, you don't need to do anything to become a political prisoner. It's enough for the checkpoint to not like the way your hair looks like, and they'll take you to prison. That's how it was until the 2 days ago. So I was not taken to prison because I did anything. Last time I was taken, I was just sitting at home with my cousins, and they attacked and they arrested me with my cousins and other friends and so on. They were just trying to clean the city from the young people so nobody would potentially protest against the government. And so I was taken to prison and interrogation. During interrogation, they torture you and they pull out your fingernails and they ask you questions. You better answer with the way they want. So the false confessions were first out of us to say that we committed crimes that were not technically committed, and we definitely didn't commit it ourselves. So we ended up being in prison and ended up being sentenced to execution and spent 3 years. One of these 3 years has been inside Sinai prison, which is known to be the worst prison, if not only in Syria, if not in the entire world, definitely in Syria. And then on my day of execution, I was lucky enough to be smuggled. My mom has made sure to bribe everyone, including the execution guards, to smuggle me out of prison, and that's how I survived.
Extraordinary story. It sounds absolutely harrowing, Omar. Tell us about the Syrians who very much share your story, and you as well. I mean, you must have so much trauma and must be dealing with so much trauma. Tell us about the trauma that you have experienced.
Well, the biggest trauma I can tell you is the world have been watching us for 14 years be killed, displaced, tortured, starved, go through chemical weapons and do nothing about it. Nothing is more depressing on this planet to see democracies around the world not even caring about humans that are trying to fight for democracy. I mean, this is so disappointing to see, has been so disappointing for so many years. That being said, I don't know how much I can tell you about the time in those prisons. Imagine the torture that I and thousands, hundreds of thousands of Syrians went through. Imagine the pain of, hearing your bones being broken. Imagine when they pull out your fingernails. Imagine when they force you to torture the one that you love the most, or you will be killed with him. Imagine when they force my beloved ones to torture me. Imagine when they ask me to choose someone to be executed, and if I don't choose, we all will be executed. Imagine the trauma they wanted to put us through, both physically and mentally, and yet despite all the pain they tried to inflict on us physically and mentally, we have prevailed and we won, and the Syrian people have managed to bring down the dictator that has been in power for so many years, established all the intelligence services he needed to survive for as long as possible, and yet we broke him. And today we can be here on the streets celebrating, laughing, smiling, carrying very high our flags and singing the songs we want. Yesterday I was in a celebration protest with a lot of Syrians. It took me back to 2011 when people went out to the street asking for freedom and democracy, and they raised their hands to the sky. It was the same feeling, except that now we have no fear. Now we know that we won the war against the dictator. Now it's all about making sure that we stay engaged in politics to make sure that we achieve the freedom we want, we achieve the democracy we want. But the biggest obstacle we had for democracy and freedom in Syria is gone, and it's Assad.
Absolutely extraordinary, Omar. Give us your thoughts on HTS now. You're speaking of this optimism. Do you really believe that HTS will really mark this turning point for Syria and for the Syrian people?
Syria is going through a very sensitive time right now. It's very new for people. Everything is new. Everything is going on very fast. However, What happened in the last few days has been amazing in the sense of bringing down the Assad regime. I don't fear that any group will claim power because they cannot, because the Syrians won't like that. Do you think we went out to the street asking for freedom and democracy and being slaughtered for 14 years to allow a group come and take the power after the regime falls? No Syrian would accept that. So I don't see that as a huge risk like the media is painting it. While I don't necessarily like all the parties or the divisions uh, that has been fighting, and I think there's been a lot of mistakes here and there. Yet I believe in the Syrian people. I believe in my people. I believe in myself that I would not let another dictator come to power, and I would want someone in power that respects me as much as they respect my mother and my sister and my friends who are Kurds and Alawites and Durzi and Sunni and Christians. We will not settle before we have democracy, and I think everybody is aware of that in Syria. The fighters from all different divisions, they are aware of that. So I don't think anyone will try to claim the power to themselves because they know that our destiny will be the destiny of Bashar al-Assad.
Well, we're all hoping that things will get better there. Omar, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. We really appreciate having you on the program. That's Omar Alshogre, who is a human rights activist and director of detainee affairs for the NGO, the Syrian Emergency Task Force. Thanks so much for joining us on the program. Well, next on Prime News.